Dr. Richard Bell here in San Antonio. Grew up in West Texas, but love San Antonio. I was originally diagnosed by another urologist here in San Antonio. Father had prostate cancer. My brother, who's a physician here in town, had prostate cancer at a much younger age than what I was. And so been going to the same urologist my brother had been going to for years, been going every year since the age of 40. Got diagnosed by him with a biopsy, of course, with prostate cancer, and then the ultimate decision becomes, well, what do you do next? So obviously you sit down, consider what all the options are. Surgery, being my age, still have many, many years to go, all those sorts of things, was the only option I considered. So at that point, the other urologist I was going to had a surgeon within their group that had done quite a few surgeries, but not nearly as many as Dr. Kella. So I did some research, found out Dr. Kella had done more robotic prostatectomies than anybody else in the city. In fact, apparently anybody else in the whole state of Texas. Experience is a huge factor for that. I had a good discussion with my brother, who had his prostate cancer surgery done way before the robotic surgery was even available here in San Antonio. Had good results, thank goodness. But with his advice, he researched around also a bit and found out that you need to go to whoever's done the most. That's a huge, huge factor in who you want to select as far as a surgeon, who's done the most surgeries. And Dr. Kella's done by far more than anybody else. So at that point, I switched my care from the other urologist office over to Dr. Kella. Did a consult with him, felt very comfortable. My wife and I both came along. Both of us felt extraordinarily comfortable with him. His surgical skills, experience, his knowledge, his high-tech attitude towards everything. He's very caring, takes his time to answer questions, which I'm a doctor myself. That's a very, very important thing, is to make sure you take the time to answer everybody's questions that they have and make sure they feel comfortable. And also understand realistic expectations. That's another huge part of the process too. Of course, everybody's got a tremendous amount of anxiety going into the procedure. You'd be crazy if you didn't have any anxiety going into it, because you don't know what's going to happen afterwards for sure. You hope for the best results, but you absolutely don't know that for a fact. So anyway, Dr. Kella was very comforting. Obviously, his statistics, his record of how many he's done, his percentages of how many people have had very good outcomes, certainly was very encouraging. Felt confident, and then went on from there. The other thing I was very fortunate to have was a friend of mine in the Dallas area had the time and the money when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer to actually go research all around the country. Theoretically picked out the 10 best or most commonly known robotic surgeons in the entire country. Actually flew out, met with all 10 of them, interviewed them, looked at statistics, all sorts of things like that. Ended up, and this was about just over a year ago, he ended up selecting a surgeon in the New York City area. World famous supposedly and all that. Did that, and he had very good results. He was very happy with the results, but when it came time for me, I discussed with him those 10 surgeons, and then of course I also told him about Dr. Kella here in town. I'd already met with Dr. Kella, and his numbers, same thing he recommended, will just certainly go to somebody who's done a tremendous number of them. And I honestly picked Dr. Kella. I think he was just as good, if not better, than any of those other 10 world-renowned surgeons in the rest of the country. So obviously I elected to just stay right here in San Antonio, the comfort of home, and I've had better results than what my friend had. And I think Dr. Kella should certainly be on that top 10 list in the country, if not at the very top of that top 10 list in the entire country. I really feel that confident and comfortable with him. The preparation, of course, everybody has got concerns when they go in. Part of the fear is what do I expect afterwards, what to expect when you go in for surgery. The center here with Dr. Kella was very good at educating me and my wife. It's a very important part also, if you're married, to have your wife very involved in that. And what to realistically expect as far as pre-op, post-op, what to expect immediately after post-op when you wake up in the hospital bed. And you wake up, you go into surgery, of course you don't know a thing, because obviously the general anesthesia works fantastic. You wake up and you've got a catheter in you and certain other things, you feel a little sore, all those things. But fortunately the center here that Dr. Kella runs was very good at prepping people, and in particular my case, everybody's case I'm sure, of what to expect going in, what to expect coming out. Dr. Kella greets you in the hospital before you go into surgery, of course, if you've got any other further questions, things like that. The staff here is excellent as far as getting you back, showing some videos of what to expect as well. So feel very well informed by their staff. Traditional surgery scares me. Traditional surgery, of course, is a fairly large incision. Frequently blood transfusions are needed within that procedure itself. The robotic surgery itself, of course, does not normally require any transfusions, and of course the recovery time is generally faster with that as well. The only thing it ended up with was 5 little scars about that long, and very minor. I can certainly live with those the rest of my life, not an issue whatsoever. Soreness after the surgery, immediately afterwards. I'll never forget the first time when I woke up in the hospital bed and needing eventually to get up and get a drink of water. Just, of course, your abdominal muscles are going to be very sore afterwards, and just trying to pull yourself up to get a drink, that was a shock because you're used to just being able to sit up without any problem, and all of a sudden, oops, it's a little sore down there. So you have to use your arms and things like that to do those sorts of activities, but favored that compared to the open radical prostatectomy. Definitely recovery time, I'm sure, is much faster, and I have a good person to compare with since my brother, who's a physician here in town, had it done about 8 years ago with the old technique. My recovery is much faster than his. It depends what you define as recovery time, but as far as getting up and around, next day. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, getting out of bed, walking around, it's a little tough walking around the first day, but basically you get up and get going, and then day 2's even better, day 3's even better, and the next thing you know, away you're going. I had my surgery February 13th. Today's mid-June, so it's been just over 3 months. Absolutely fantastic. And the key is in all this is managing realistic expectations. You always have the fear, of course, of impotence and incontinence coming out of that. Everybody should have that fear. The good news is, and I'm very fortunate, and I'm very happy, I have a smile on my face, I have had no complications whatsoever. Very fortunate. Absolutely fortunate, and thank you, Dr. Keller. Absolutely, yes. I would go to nobody else. And again, of those 10 different surgeons around the country that my friend had interviewed, all world-renowned, all that sort of stuff, again, I would absolutely put Dr. Keller number 1 on that list. Oh, absolutely. I think he's literally state-of-the-art. I know he's state-of-the-art. He's a very high-tech guy, again, communicates well. He's not in a big hurry, which is very, very important. Takes all the time to talk to you. But again, as far as my surgical outcome, absolutely way beyond what my realistic expectations were. So I'm very, very fortunate. And again, the service here has just been absolutely fantastic.